What's up, YouTube? Ben Parker back at it with another Chinese video. I know I said last time that I was not going to make a Chinese video for a while because I'm learning Chinese and I'm like, here's the YouTube videos to check out, and I don't want to feel ready to teach Chinese because I'm learning, and that's all true and everything. But then I kind of did some thinking. I thought to myself, you know what? I've been learning Chinese long enough that I can at least help um, people with some basic Chinese, and also kind of share a little more about my journey. So, if you're learning Chinese and you're kind of starting out, I think this particular topic I think will help you, because this is a topic that, quite honestly, as I was kind of learning Chinese, I kind of had to figure this one out. Okay, and the topic for today is how do you say Chinese in Chinese? Now that sounds like a really simple lesson. Well, isn't it obvious? There's just like how in English, how do you say English? You say English, right? Or how do you say Spanish? In Spanish, you say Español, right? That's it. But Chinese is a little bit more complicated. There's several different ways that you can say Chinese in Chinese. So, and that kind of, and so what I'm going to kind of go through today is what those different ways of saying it are, and also kind of the context or situations in which you're more likely to come across these particular phrases. Okay, so in other words, I think one of the important things to kind of understand is that China is a big country, and how should I say this? It's a huge country, and the Chinese-speaking world is even bigger. You have Taiwan on top of mainland China. Okay, and both mainland China and Taiwan, the lingua franca there is Mandarin. Okay, so when I'm talking about how to say Chinese in Chinese, I'm specifically addressing the topic of how do you say Mandarin in Chinese. Okay, because it's important to understand that Chinese, if you say I speak Chinese, it's saying you speak a macro language. Okay, and this is something that I didn't know. When I started learning Chinese, I thought, oh, you learn Chinese, Chinese is Chinese. Well, no, Chinese is not Chinese, okay? There's so many, every region of China, okay, has its own dialect, okay? So Shanghai has its own dialect called Shanghainese. Wenzhou has its own dialect called Wenzhounese, okay? And then Cantonese is called Guangdong Pas, which means the speech of the Guangdong province of China. Okay, so every region of China has its own dialect, and the reason why Mandarin was implemented, in case you want a little history lesson here, is because basically what unified China through the centuries was the written language, the characters, right? The Hanzi, as they're called in Chinese, the characters. But across all of China, the people had a hard time understanding each other from one part of China to the next in terms of spoken, because their dialects were different. There's a really good YouTube video I like by Monkey Abroad, one of the YouTube channels I mentioned in my first video, Monkey Abroad, about all the different ways that people say, "Ni Charlema, have you eaten yet?" Right? You'll start to come across all these different kinds of ways of saying "Ni Charlema, Charbalame." I mean, I can't say all of them, but the point is Chinese was so diverse of a language, so many different dialects, that there had to be, in the 1920s or what have you, the Chinese government decided, okay, we need to have one language, one unified dialect that everyone across the entire country of China speaks, so that we can communicate with each other. So what you have in China now is everyone speaks both Mandarin and their regional dialect, and as time goes on, more and more people are going to be just speaking Mandarin, and regional dialects they might die out. Okay, so in case you're should I learn Mandarin or should I learn Cantonese, it's important to keep in mind that Mandarin is the lingua franca of the entire Chinese-speaking world. Mainland China, Taiwan, it's Mandarin, whereas in Cantonese is a regional dialect of the Guangdong province, and the biggest city in the Guangdong province is Hong Kong. So if you want to go move to Hong Kong, you can learn Cantonese. But just anyway, that's more than you need to know. But the point is this video is specifically about how to say Mandarin in Chinese, in Mandarin. Okay, so in Mandarin, how do you say the Mandarin language, okay, because there's lots of different ways. So what I've done for you is I have put together a sheet, okay, of all the different ways of saying Mandarin that I've come across, and I'm going to show those to all of you. So if you just kind of follow me as I'm going to switch around here. Bear with me for a second here as I flip around, and voila, there you go. There is my sheet, okay, and I printed this out. I made this tonight. I was actually doing some Big Bird in China tonight. Good times with Big Bird and the Monkey King. They become my best friends as I learn Chinese, but I digress. So, as you see here, how to say Chinese, Mandarin and Chinese. Now, ignore the last one here. Well, don't ignore it. But the last one you'll see here is Guangdong Pas, which means Cantonese. Okay, so like, I'm just saying that because you may want to learn how to ask people in Mandarin, like, oh, do you speak Cantonese as well? Like, just for your reference there. But everything else is referring to Mandarin. Okay, so what I have here is I have the characters that they're written in. You can kind of see here the characters they're written in, the characters. And then I have what's called the Pinyin. So if you're not familiar, and I should probably also say too that if like you have never studied Chinese in your life before, this probably isn't the video for you. I mean, you can still watch, like have fun with it, but like this is more for people like if you have a basic understanding of Pinyin and how Chinese works, then you'll get a lot more out of this. But if you're new to Chinese and you haven't learned anything about Chinese yet, this may fly over your head. But as I learned studying Chinese, sometimes watching a video that I didn't know much about, I still learned something from it. So anyway, just so we're clear on that. So what Pinyin is I guess I'll kind of flip around here quickly, just talking to you guys here. Pinyin is Chinese spelled with Romanized alphabets. Okay, so the Chinese government was like, look, yo, like, okay, we got to find a way to help people like learn how to pronounce the characters properly. How do we do this? Okay, let's use Romanized alphabetical letters from the Roman alphabet, and let's, how do I say this? Just that. Let's use Romanized alphabets to help people know how to pronounce words. Okay, so that's what Pinyin is. It is Chinese using Romanized alphabets. Okay, and Japanese has its own thing called Romaji as well, for your reference. So anyway, so what I have once again here is I have the characters, and I have the Pinyin, and then I have next to it I have this in both traditional and simplified characters. So you guys are learning a lot here. So if there's no brackets, then it's just simplified character. Then it's traditional characters. But what I have on the left and the outside for everything here is on the outside is the simplified characters, and on the inside I have if there is one, like for example, kind of got a shadow here, but this one right here, for example, that is the traditional characters. Okay, so that's what I have here. Okay, so hopefully you guys can see this okay. And if I make more of these videos, I'll try to make these look a little more professional, but for now I'm just kind of like going with the current here, going with the flow in the middle of the night here. Okay, so the first ones you'll see here is called Zhongwen. Okay, Zhongwen, as you'll see here, you will see at the very top of Zhongwen, you will see a line at the top. That means it's a first tone, and that little line there means it's a second tone. So Zhong, high flat, Wen, it's like you're asking a question. Okay, Zhongwen. Okay, that means the Chinese language. Okay, so Zhongwen means the Chinese language. Okay, and Wen, okay, specifically means this character here, Wen, specifically means it's referring to kind of the written language, okay, of Chinese. So it's important to kind of, I think, understand as you go about learning Chinese, the more characters you learn, the more vocabulary you learn, and you just kind of start to see that Chinese is all building blocks, okay, and each character has means its own thing, okay, and each individual character, each individual word builds to mean something, okay. So going back to Zhongwen, Okay. Kind of scroll down to the bottom here, what you'll see here is you will see what's called Zhongguo. Okay, and Zhongguo means China. Okay, Zhongguo means China. And literally what it means is Zhong, what you see this line here with the little box and the line through it here. Zhong, you can kind of see it right there. Okay, Zhong, okay, that means middle. Okay, and this character here, Guo, I need to get my tones right. Zhongguo, Guo, second tone, means country. So literally it means middle country or middle kingdom. So in case you wonder where does the middle kingdom come from, that's where it comes from. Okay, so Zhongguo means middle kingdom, means China. Okay, so back to the top, we have Zhongwen, that means China language. So substitute out Guo right here, take this out and put in Wen, which means language. Zhongwen, that means China language or Chinese. Okay, but literally it just means like the language of China. And Wen means language, but it's more referring to like written language in terms of its literal definition, but it just means language. Okay, the next one here you'll see here, okay, is called Hanwen. Okay, so Han is fourth tone. Okay, Han, fourth tone. So just to kind of quickly kind of go through the, let me kind of scribble this out for you guys here actually, while we're on the topic here. Okay, here we go. So what I'm going to write for you guys right now is I'm going to write for you guys 4 different ways of saying a word. Okay. 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 So what you see here is you will see 4 different ways to say the word ma. Okay, in Chinese. Okay. Ma, 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 ma. Okay, so ma right here is high flat tone. The line on top of it means it's a first tone, high flat tone. Ma, okay, ma, okay, that means mom. Okay, that means like your mother. Okay. Ma, like you're asking a question. Ma, ma, ma. Okay, like you're asking a question, like, huh? What is that? Huh? Ma. Okay, that means numb. Okay. Third tone, ma. You kind of drop down, so it's really easy to get second and third tones like mixed up, or it's harder to distinguish the two sometimes. But third tone you got to drop down a little bit more. Ma, like that. Ma. Okay, that means horse. Okay, and then ma means to scold or to chastise. So ma, 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 ma. Okay, so those are the different tones. So first tone, second tone, third, fourth. Ma, ma. Excuse me. Ma, 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 ma. Okay, right. So that's how that goes. So ma, 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 ma. Okay, mom, numb, horse, scold, or to chastise. Okay, and it's also important to note too that these all have different characters. Okay, I'm just writing the pinyin for the sake of time here. Okay, so those are the 4 different tones. Okay, so what we have here with so once again, Zhongwen is a first tone, then a second tone. Zhongwen, and that means China language. Then we have Hanwen. Okay, so fourth tone, then a second tone. Hanwen, and that means language of the Han people. Okay, so the Han people, the main ethnic group in China is the Han people. Okay, so Hanwen just means, once again, fourth tone, second tone. Hanwen means the Han language, the written language of the Han people. Okay, and you'll see here that I have the simplified character on the outside, and on the inside I have the traditional characters. And just really quickly on like what the difference is between simplified and traditional, in addition to implementing Pinyin, the mainland Chinese government decided to simplify about 20% of their characters because some of them they felt were too complicated. And that's created some sort of political divide because in Taiwan they only use traditional characters, and in mainland China they only use simplified. And the people in Taiwan are like, yo, like the traditional characters, like that's our language, like you're taking away our identity. And mainland China's like, no, we're not. We're just making it easier to read. Okay, it's about, like I said, there's 20% of traditional characters that have been simplified. So 80% of the characters are the same, but it's important to understand that some characters have been simplified from their traditional form, and you can kind of see that here, right? The difference between Han simplified versus Han traditional. So Hanwen, okay, and that means language of the Han people. And once again, Wen refers to more the written component of the language, but it still means language. And then you got the next one I have is Hanyu. Excuse me, that's the first tone I said. Sorry, Han. Right, so Han, fourth tone. Hanyu. Okay, so Hanyu means the language of the Han people as well. But yu with a third tone, means speech. Okay, so wen means more like the written part of the language. Yu means more. Third tone, more means speech. Okay, so it means the same thing as Han language, but it's like Han speech. Okay, and then we have what's called 普通话. Okay, and this is a mainland Chinese term. You can kind of see that there. 普通话. Okay, so 普, third tone, first tone. Now we're getting our tones kind of going here. So third tone, first tone, fourth tone. 普通话. Okay, that means the common talk or common speech. Okay, so like the language that unifies everybody. Okay, and then we have what's called 国语. Okay, so 国, second tone, 语, third tone. 国语, okay, means national language. Okay, so 国语, okay, so the national language. Okay, and this one here, I looked it up and it did come up as I was kind of like, see, once again with Chinese, what makes Chinese fun is its building blocks, right? So you can kind of like experiment with like, oh, like I want to, maybe I'll kind of turn around here because I'm going to talk a little bit about this here, and the lighting is better. But what's cool with Chinese, it's all building blocks, right? And so the more words you learn, you can kind of put things together, right? So the word hua, fourth tone, means speech, okay? So for giggles, okay, I decided, let me just look up 中国话. Let me see if that actually pops up as a definition of Chinese. And lo and behold, it did, okay? Now, the one thing I do want to say about this definition here, okay, what I do want to say about 中国话 is I have never in my life, ever heard anyone use this, but it is a definition that is in Pleco, the Chinese app that I use. So if you use 中国话, they should know what you're saying. It'll just sound kind of funny. Okay, and then last we have 广东话. So once again, third tone, first tone, fourth tone. 广东话. 广东话. Okay, that means Cantonese. So Cantonese is completely different from Mandarin. 中文和广东话不一样, and that just means Mandarin and Cantonese, not the same, different. 不一样 means not the same. So 不 means not, 一样 means the same. So 不一样 means not the same. And I'm not going to write down that for you because that's not the purpose of this lesson, but just a little bonus Chinese for you. But anyway, to kind of close this out, I just want to quickly kind of go through when I've come across these, and I think a question that I think the reason why I want to make this video in the first place is a question I had when I was studying Chinese was, which one do I use? Do I use Zhongwen? Do I use Zhongwen? Do I use Hanwen? Do I use Hanyu? Do I use 普通话? Which one do I use? Like I've had situations where I'm talking to people, and like I'm talking to people like from Hong Kong, and I'm like, oh, like 你会说广东话吗? You speak Cantonese? And I say, oh, I asked them like, oh, I was like, 你的广东话 be the, and I was kind of trying to freeze because I froze in mind because I wanted to say like, oh, 你的广东话 be the 中文很好吗? Like, is your Cantonese better than your Mandarin? But I felt kind of weird saying that because I'm thinking, but Chinese is a macro language, and like if I'm saying 中文, aren't I just saying Chinese? And like, so anyway, it gets it can get a little confusing in terms of like which one do I use. So that's kind of why I want to make this video. So I've gone through the pronunciations. You have them all here in front of you. 中文, Hanwen, Hanyu, 普通话, 国语, 中国话, and then Cantonese is Guangdong Pas. So I'm going to go through, I'm not going to talk more about Cantonese because this is just Cantonese. This is just the lingua franca of Hong Kong and the Cantonese speaking region, okay? But the rest of these, I'll refer to Mandarin. So I'm going to quickly go through just when you will come across these and which one you should use. So I have found in my Chinese experience that Zhongwen, okay, once again, Zhongwen, I have found Zhongwen to be the most universal. Like every Chinese person I talk to gets it, they understand it. It's doesn't offend anybody. It's very safe. Whether the person is from mainland China, Taiwan, doesn't matter. Zhongwen gets it done. And also too, for what it's worth, this was the first one I learned. So when I first learned how to say Chinese in Chinese, the first one I learned was Zhongwen, and once again means language of the Middle Kingdom. But Zhongwen was the first one I learned. Okay. As for Hanwen and Hanyu, you'll see these in textbooks, okay, particularly Hanyu. You'll see this in like textbooks a lot, but I don't hear Hanwen or Hanyu used much in daily conversation with Chinese people, particularly Hanyu. I just don't hear it much. I mean, it's not to say that people won't ever say it, they will, but I don't hear it as much. But it's still good to know about them for your reference and to also understand that people might say it. So someone could ask you, "Oh, 你会说韩文 or 你会说汉语?" And just so we're clear, if you guys know, 你会说 means do you speak? 你会说, so do you speak? 你 means you, 会 means can, be the ability to, 说 means to speak. So 你会说汉语?你会说韩文? And you can say 我会说韩文 or 我会说汉语. You can say yes, 我 means I, 会 means can, 说 means speak, 汉语 Hanwen. Okay, so you will come across these, but just not as frequently. Okay, so between Zhongwen, Hanwen, and Hanyu, I hear Zhongwen the most by far of the three. Now, as for Putonghua, this one's interesting because this is exclusively a mainland Chinese term. Okay, it refers to like you're speaking the common talk, the common speech. It's very kind of communist, if you will. It has a lot of communist overtones. So if you're in mainland China and you're talking to people in mainland China, then Putonghua, no problem. People get what you're saying. You're just saying that I speak the language of the people. Okay, and that kind of sounds kind of communist, like you're working for the people. Blah, 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 right? The people. That's so Putonghua. Just understand that Putonghua has a very kind of like communist, kind of like political overtones to it. So once again, you can use it and you'll come across it sometimes. But if someone says to you, "Oh, 你会说普通话吗?" you can like book it. They're from mainland China. Okay. Next one. So just understand the political significance of this one as well as this one. So Guayu. So once again, second tone. Gua as in country. Guayu means national language or country language. Okay, so this one I come across a lot from people that are from Taiwan. So I've heard this from people from Taiwan. So people in Taiwan have said to me, "Oh, like I was talking to somebody recently, and they're like, 'Oh, 他会说国语.' This person speaks the national language." Okay, so 国语 is one that you'll come across in Taiwan. Okay, at least the people that I've heard it use it have been more or less from Taiwan. Okay, so 国语 once again means national language. Okay. And then the last one here is 中国话, which means China talk, China speech, the language of the Middle Kingdom, language of China, the speech of China. I've never in my Chinese studies come across anyone say 你会说中国话. I've never heard anyone say it, but it did come up as a definition. And it's important to know that 话 means speech. Okay, so 话 means speech, and you're just saying China speech. So you, like I said, I would not use 中国话, but it's theoretically possible that you could come across it. And also too, just good to know because 话 means speech. You're I'm putting building blocks together by doing 中国话. I'm saying, oh, China speech, 中国话. Okay, so anyway, that's it. As for like which one you should use, once again, the advice I've been told is, hey, kind of pick whichever one you're most comfortable with, and just kind of roll with that. But understand that when people use the term Chinese, or people refer to Chinese, Mandarin, and once again I'm talking Mandarin specifically, they could use any of these terms except for Guangdong Pas, which is Cantonese. But all the rest of these, someone could theoretically use. And so when someone uses these different terms, it's important to understand that they're all referring to the same thing. They're all referring to Mandarin Chinese. And as far as, like I said, which one you should use, it's up to you. I personally, my default is Zhongwen. It's just the one I'm most comfortable with. But I sometimes like to kind of practice like Hanwen, Hanyu, or Guayu, just to, like, get comfortable saying it, because other people might be more comfortable with that. So any rate, yeah, that's it for the video. I know this was kind of a long video, but I hope that this helped those of you that are learning Chinese and had questions about this. So once again, in terms of like which of those terms you use, it really doesn't matter, but it's just important to understand that the kind of political kind of overtones, particularly of Putonghua versus Guayu, or of Guayu and Putonghua, right? So those are the two that those are the two that kind of have the political overtones, Putonghua and Guayu. Okay, so Putonghua is very mainland China, Guayu is much more Taiwan. Okay, and then what makes Zhongwen nice is Zhongwen is like, you can use it in mainland China, Taiwan. It means, everyone gets it. It's very universal. There's no political thing associated with it. So when in doubt, I think Zhongwen is the way to go. But if you like to use any, but if there's one that you're more comfortable with, or if you've already been learning Chinese for a while, and there's one of those other ones that is like your default, then just stick with that. Like, don't worry about switching to Zhongwen as your default. But just, if you're like, which one should I use, I would recommend Zhongwen. So anyway, that's it for the video. If you have any questions or comments, please comment below. Feel free to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I'm hoping to do more Chinese learning videos in the future. And also too, in the bottom, I will also post, in the description, I will also add my social media information, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, in case you want to hit me up on there as well and just ask me questions or what have you. So hopefully you guys found this video helpful and useful, and I'll catch you guys on the next video that I'll do. Peace.